Is about being able to be mad and being able to accept people being mad at you. To not be able to get mad at anybody or angry at somebody. We could even say the cousins of being mad is frustration, disappointed, irritated, annoyed. And however we want to look at any of this, and whatever words we want to use to explain these emotions, it's so healthy to have these emotions because these emotions mean something is wrong. These emotions allow you to not only feel that there's a problem, but be able to solve it. Some people just give in and they're kind and they want the least amount of trouble, the least amount of tension and stress. And sometimes it's easier just to do that as opposed to getting angry and there being a problem. And now the problem isn't about the actual problem, it's about somebody not liking it when anger is towards them. And then it just doubles when that person who can't handle the anger is angry back. And that anger can't be handled by the person it originally came from. So now we're in this fight. How healthy would it be to be able to be angry at somebody, and for them, let's say they are confused, or let's say they are like a little standoffish or defensive. Okay, but what if they were like, hang on, you know what? What if they did make a mistake? What if they did screw up? And what if they said to themselves, or even to you, I know you're angry, and I would be too. Completely legitimate. This is what I'm going to do for you, or what could I do to be helpful? Imagine if that's how people handled another person's anger. We have to consider that they were wrong, and they knew it, or they eventually realized it, and it wasn't this big drawn out thing. What if they're not wrong? Why would they accept your anger? Why would they try to, be supportive and kind? I don't think they would. And then that puts the person who's angry in the position of, are you wrong? Now, if they were to accept, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. Then they could also apologize, or they could also then be like, you know what? I know I was a little bit heated, maybe rude and disrespectful, and I apologize. You're right. Now I can see what this is about. I could see this a little bit more clearer, or I finally understand. And imagine if all this took was 2 minutes. So, why aren't people able, number one, to be angry? They're afraid. People are afraid to be angry. We could say there are reasons other than that they're afraid, because maybe they just don't want to deal with someone else's intolerance, or they don't want to deal with more stress. So it's easier to be compliant and turn the other cheek. That could be the reason, but I'd like to say more times than not, people that are more compliant, so-called easygoing, I think they're not realizing that they're not allowing themselves to be justifiable to themselves. You don't have to be justifiable to someone else. Depends on the circumstance, but generally speaking, you're supposed to support how you feel and think. If something pisses you off, you're supposed to be pissed off. I'm not saying you could say and do whatever the hell you want at someone else's expense, but what I'm saying is, reasonably, you take care of how you feel. You're allowed to raise your voice. You're allowed to have an angry tone. You're allowed to correct another person, say, no, you're incorrect. That's not the truth. You're allowed to take these steps if you actually have the truth, if you have evidence. I don't think you should trample over another person just because if you are correct. I think that's also unhealthy. Because who knows how another person is interpreting anything. They could shut down at the slightest sense of anger, or they could argue back. Also could be a tendency to protect themselves. We have to realize the situation we're involved with, and possibly the person's personality type or how they're handling the situation. Why are you going to keep arguing with somebody who can't understand or is too afraid to? It doesn't make any sense. Now that's about power and control. It's not about the situation. So people could be afraid to be angry. And I think that's unacceptable. Just because you have had bad situations or things have backfired, which puts us in like a PTSD situation. I'm going to act this way based off my previous experiences of life, which I may or may not recall. You have to get out of this pattern, if this is your pattern, to kind of give in, kind of be easygoing, kind of be the savior or the nice person. I don't think that's acceptable unless it's necessary or extremely helpful, because look at what a crappy day we've already had. So it could be used as a strategy, just not used as a way of how you generally handle situations. So get angry at people. Practice getting angry. Meaning, if somebody pisses you off or somebody does something that you don't like or whatever, you have the right to be angry, and then how are you going to handle that? You know, this is all easier said than done, because anyone who struggles with this, they could start a really big problem. Because they don't know how to use their words. They don't know how to, handle another person's anger. It can get ugly. So you got to be very careful. This isn't that easy. But you have to work with being able to realize, if you're correct, correct another person. If through that process you're incorrect, then apologize. A lot of times people also are afraid I forgot where I was going with that. I lost my train of thought. Oh, the thing that happens if we were to go to the next stage. Okay, I start off with just being angry. I allow myself, and then I'm going to say something. The next stage is, now that person disagrees or that person gets angry back. People could revert back to being the closed off, shut down type of person, give in, accommodate, or attack and be defensive. Instead of realizing you're just unable to articulate what you know, because you're afraid to actually care about your point of view. So people end up reverting back to the fear that was already there, and they're trying to work through it, and then people end up giving in. So eventually, once you get through that second stage, it's like, wait a second, I'm able to just explain. This person is allowed to be angry as well. They don't like anger. They don't like to be wrong. They don't like to be corrected. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they don't want to get in trouble. You know? Whatever the case is, you have to realize you have to work with that. Meaning, you're not trying to change people, and you don't have to be their helper, but you can realize you're allowed to be angry. So what it comes down to is, if anyone's getting angry, who can handle their anger simultaneously being able to explain their point of view while trying to understand the other person's perspective, all in an effort not to be correct, but to seek for truth.